live stream where I use my 55 years working on cars to answer all your car questions. Not often you can talk to a mechanic as old as me who still remembers stuff. So remember, during the show on YouTube Live, go to the live chat, ask your questions in the live chat. They pop up on my computer screen and I can answer. All right. First question, Chevy trucks. Scotty, any tips on removing stuck brake drums on Chevy trucks? Okay. Yeah, brake drums can stick on, right? Now, on a lot of the newer stuff that still has it, there's little bolt holes. You screw the bolts in and they can pop off. If yours has those, great. You get long threaded bolts, stick them in there, tighten them up, it'll pop off. Now, if it doesn't, then what you basically have to do is get yourself a small sledgehammer. I actually had a large sledgehammer and I cut the handle short. I go behind and I back the backside, hit it and hit it and hit it and hit it and hit it until it comes off. Now you can spray W40 on the hub part, and you can even heat it up with a torch on the hub part. Then when you hit it on the back, now if it's really, really stuck, they do make giant pullers that are like 3-jaw pullers. It fits on the inside of the drum, then it goes on the front hub and you can screw it, and that will pop it off. And if you don't want to buy something, like sometimes auto parts stores will loan you the tools free. Next question. Damien says, Scotty, I found a 90 Rolls-Royce Silver Spur 20,000 original actual miles with a 6.75 V8 Rolls engine for $38,000. Were they good cars? What do you think? No, they were rolling piles of junk, especially in the 90s. That was some of the worst cars they ever made. The newer ones are mainly BMWs, and they're actually better. But those, whew, one guy in the 90s won one in some kind of charity raffle, and is going through a car wash. The entire exhaust system fell off in the car wash. Not only are they rolling piles of junk, but the parts cost a fortune for those things. I've worked on them. I mean, the brake rotors, they'll be like, $900 a piece. I mean, everything's outrageous. Don't waste your money on that thing. It makes a good bird fountain. You can park it and look at it, but driving it, especially being a 90, everything's going to be dry rotted. All the rubber is going to be bad. The engine seals will leak. You'll have to pull the engine out. Take the transmission off. Don't buy it. Barack says, Scotty, if you had to drive a Fiat for the rest of your life or shave your head, what would you choose and why? Oh, that's easy. I'd shave my head because it would grow back. The Fiat, forget it. Now, I have to say, though, as a white dude, I'll never shave my head because as far as I'm concerned, I see white dudes that shave their heads. They all look like someone who just escaped from a lunatic asylum or were mass murderers. Yeah, bald with white guys just doesn't go. Think Mr. Clean in those ads, right? I mean, guys do it because, well, they're going bald and they want to look macho, right? To me, they look like they just escaped from an insane asylum. I don't care. You're going bald. Hey, live with it. Don't try to hide it by shaving it all off and think that you're a macho man now. Unless you are a macho man. In which case, do whatever you want. Who's going to stop you? Next question. Some strange alphabet I've never seen before asks, hey, Scotty, what are your thoughts on the new Honda HR-V? Would you buy the hybrid? Well, let me tell you something. I would never buy a hybrid. You know why? Because I work on them, right? I'll give you a perfect example. The other day, guy down the street, I had to send him to him because I don't have a lift, right? So I sent him this Mitsubishi hybrid. It was towed to me, then we towed it to him because it wouldn't move. Well, it was a hybrid. It had a problem with the hybrid monitoring system. There's a 12-volt battery in all those cars, and that sends power to these relays that then switch and turn on the big 400-volt power, right? Oh, I got something in my eye here. Hair. Speaking of losing hair, it's sticking in my eyes now. Now, this part cost $80, right? Had to disconnect the AC system because that cooled the battery pack. Had to drop the entire battery pack, which weighs a ton, take all those high tension wires off, wearing safety gloves. I mean, it's a real pain in the butt. And of course, you got to have a lift because those things weigh so much. the guy slid a big table under the lift, and then the battery pack came off on that. Then he lifted the car up so he could work on the battery pack. Then had to use fancy computer stuff. I'm getting a new one. As a matter of fact, it's coming in a few minutes. UPS, right? It's an hotel. These guys are going to be sending me some stuff. I'm trying out. And he had to use that fancy machine, analyze. And he said, well, I think it's this part, but I'm not going to put it all back together again. And then it's not, right? So he had to get extensions and connect the electrical stuff, then put the tool and turn the car on, and it showed that fixed it, right? Then I had to put it all back together again. Okay, this was over a $2,000 repair job to replace an $85 part. And that's how hybrids are. When they break, everything breaks eventually, you know? Now, if I was going to get a hybrid, I'd get a Toyota or a Honda hybrid. They make good hybrids, right? Generally, they don't break down until they get 150, 200,000 miles or more. But I'm the kind of guy that keeps cars for 300,000, 400,000 miles. 20, 30 years. And I wouldn't want a hybrid because it's just such a headache to fix when they break. Next question is Damien. He says, Scotty, what's the worst car you ever worked on from your mechanic experience? All right, hands down, it had to be a Porsche 911. Ages ago, they went to plastic crap. Well, this one had a plastic intake manifold and the gaskets were leaking, right? I did it on the car and it was such a pain to do. I was cursing and swearing. So about 2 months later, I'm going to the Porsche dealer because one of my customers had warranty work done. He wanted me to make sure they did it right. So I came in. I'm talking to this German guy who, hilariously enough, before that was in the German Navy in a submarine. Das Boot, right? He was in a Kriegsmarine. And I said to him, I said, I did one of these. He said, you did it on the car? I said, yeah. He said, I think it's impossible to do in a car. We just pull the engines out when we do the job. I said, but then you got to have an engine hoist, pull the engine out just to change the manifold. He says, we don't care. We have the equipment for it. We charge them thousands of dollars. So, now, hands down, that was the worst car I ever worked on. Next question. James Skelton says, Toyota just pledged $2.1 billion to open an EV plant in North Carolina. Any thoughts? All right. There's a difference between a pledge and something actually occurring, of course. You know? Lots of people have pledged money to charity that they never gave. Right? Toyota, as far as I'm concerned, is a pretty intelligent business company. They realize electric cars, they might be big, they might not be big. Everybody yelled at them, you're not making electric cars enough, right? Well, they're going to start small and work their way up. They're now selling mainly their electric car in China. Now, in China, Japanese electric cars only account to 0.3%, less than 1% of the electric cars sold in China. So they're testing the market there. Now, if people end up buying millions of electric cars, I'm sure Toyota will be able to build them, right? This is a pledge, right? And they're setting it up, but they're not doing it yet. Let me tell you something. I can't see tens of millions of Americans buying electric cars. I know the headaches involved in fixing them. I got equipment to work on them. I know what a big pain in the butt they are. Electric batteries, people don't want to deal with them. They have to be seasoned over time. Even Ford with their electric F-150 tell the people, here are 10 tips to get longer range out of your battery. Put your truck in a heated garage. Precondition it for a trip. Americans don't do that kind of crap. They get in and drive, right? So I don't think there are going to be millions and millions of electric cars in the United States anytime soon when people find out what a pain in the ass they are to both drive, maintain, and fix. So I think they're smart holding back. And yeah, they're pledging stuff, but let's see when it actually happens. Next question. Matt Presidio says, why are standard transmissions so uncommon now? Because people are lazy. I think 96% of Americans drive automatic transmissions now, right? That's just how Americans are. They're lazy. They don't want to shift. Now, on the engineering side, you take something like an Austrian-made ZF 8-speed high-performance automatic transmission, okay? Yeah, you put it in drive and you drive. But it's not really an automatic transmission. It is two standard transmissions with separate clutches with 8 speeds that's shifted by a computer. That's all that it is. It's got clutches in it that lift and shift, and they are so fast and efficient that you can shift them faster than you could ever shift a manual transmission. I've driven both, and let me tell you, you can't shift that fast. The computers are faster than humans. So that's another reason they're acting, because those dual clutch automatic transmissions, especially these Austrian German ones, they work better. They're still a standard transmission, but the computer controls it, and you don't have a clutch you put on with your foot. The computer operates the whole thing. That's another reason. There's a lot of cars that have dual clutch transmissions now. Next question. MJ says, Scotty, I got 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe. The transmission went out 160,000 miles. You're lucky you got that many miles. When replaced, the shop said the transmission fused to the axle. How could this happen? Okay, well, the axle fits in to the transmission on the left and the right side. The end of the axle shaft snap in, right? If the transmission is so shitty, it gets so hot, it could actually get hot enough that it would fuse right in. And they'd have to beat them off or cut them off with a torch. That's another reason I say don't buy Korean cars, Hyundais and Kias, because their quality control isn't that good. You're lucky you got 160,000 miles. I've seen them break at 80,000 miles. You're lucky it went that far. But the reason it did, it get hot enough, things fuse together. And then they won't come apart without either hammering the hell out of them or cutting them off with a torch. Next question. 007 says, Scotty, what do you think of Mazda's RX-7 early rotary engines? They were fast and fun to drive, but rotary engines have been a financial failure forever for lots of reasons. Now, they're small, they put out a lot of power, but they also get horrendous gas mileage. They're not the most efficient of engines. And the early ones, of course, they had bad rotor seals. Instead of having pistons go up and down, they got rings to seal them, right? These have a kind of triangular rounded off apex, and the seals on the end of the triangles would go bad and they'd burn oil. So they set it up so they actually injected a little bit of oil into them to keep them from wearing out. Of course, that causes pollution that ruins the catalytic converters, and on and on and on. Now, there are some out today that use GDI, gasoline direct ingestion engines, that spray them in, and they are more efficient. They get better gas mileage. But the whole concept of a rotary engine, it's always going to have a problem with those apex seals going out, and they keep failing over it. They say Mazda's going to put them out again as a backup engine for electric cars or something like that. But as primary engines, a lot of power for a little space, but just a dismal failure financially. Juanita Gonzalez says, Scotty, can I patch a coolant hose if it's leaking and the hole's the size of a thumbtack? Well, there's always the handyman's helper, duct tape. You can duct tape it. Hey, fix the hose. Come on, hoses aren't that bad. Unbolted, put a new hose in, right? It's rubber, and if it's leaking, that means the whole thing is rotten, and it's eventually going to leak all over the place. But in an emergency, yes. A lot of guys will carry black duct tape. I find that the Gorilla tape is even better than the regular duct tape. It's a type of duct tape, but it's made by a company called Gorilla Tape, right? That's the best. You could wrap it. It might last a while. I mean, in an emergency, what the heck? But hoses aren't that expensive. Just take it out, put a new one in whenever you can. Because if there's a hole in it, either you got fiendish friends who poked a hole in it, or it's old and it's rotten and you need to change it anyways. Z-Dog says, I got a 96 Celica, 2.2 liter. I've replaced the distributor, spark plugs, fuel pump, fuel filter, new timing belt, and got it retimed. It runs for a few minutes, and then it dies. Okay. Now, the 96. If you can plug an OBD2 in, you want to drive it and watch the data, right? Sometimes the 96s will, sometimes they won't. That was a switch over here. Because if it's OBD1, you're not going to get any data, and the scan tools are useless. But if you plug an OBD2 plug it. They plug it in, start analyzing the data. Have a mechanic analyze the data. Now, he said it runs a few minutes, and then it dies. All right. That's a classic sign of a problem with the distributor. Let me ask you one question. Did you put on a brand new distributor or a rebuilt one? If you put on a rebuilt one, it was probably rebuilt like crap. I used to buy rebuilt ones decades ago for those things. And I asked the guys at the auto parts store, and I said, what kind of luck do you have with these rebuilt? He says, generally 8 out of 10 work, but that means 20% of them don't work. It could be you just got a bum rebuilt distributor. That's the most common. You find it dies and then it won't start for a while. When it doesn't run, quick, check for spark. You got no spark, they rebuilt the distributor wrong. Next question. It says my 2019 CR-V makes strange moaning noises every time I drive. What could it be? It's pretty new. Generally, moaning noises are like you've got bearings that are worn in the engine or transmission. It should be worn already. Now, try a PCV valve. They suck air, and if they wear and get clicky, they'll make a moaning noise. Any kind of hose that sucks air, switching valve switching, they have vacuum lines on it, and when they switch, sometimes they hum and moan. Check all the stuff that has, vacuum pressure going into them. Now, sometimes it's nutty as you got a dirty air filter, it clogs up, and it causes the air to flow different. It can moan. So check that too. Normally, you're not going to have bearings worn out already. It's 2019. Honda makes pretty good bearings. Next question. Look for a good one. Tracy Balsazar says, Scotty, my 2016 Toyota Corolla, I ran out of questions. How can you tell what day of the week your car was made? I think it was made on a Friday of a weekend. All right, you really can't. The VIN number tells you the production, but they only break it down by months. They don't break it down even by days. It's just months. You'll see it'll say like 8, 10, 22, meaning it was made the 8th month, the 10th day, 2022. They don't break it down anything more than months. So you're not going to know. Yeah, it's true. Everybody says, you want a Wednesday car. Monday, Tuesday, they might be hungover. Thursday, Friday, they're thinking about the weekend. But Wednesday, hey, they're humming along, right? But on the other hand, if you're talking about a Toyota, if it was made in Japan, it doesn't matter what day it's because the Japanese aren't that way. They don't come to work drunk and hungover. So it wouldn't matter if it was made in Japan. But if it was in the United States, yeah, you'd want a Wednesday car. Haji says, what are your thoughts on anti-theft devices like a club? All right, a club does work. You club it on the steering wheel, they can't drive the car. But on the other hand, anybody with a hacksaw that knows how to use them gets a diamond-tipped hacksaw, take them a couple minutes to cut the thing off, right? If they really want to. But the whole thing about not getting your car stolen is make your car harder to steal than the ones next to it. So they see there's a club on yours, but the one next to it doesn't. Guess which one they're going to try to steal? Yeah, it's just common sense, right? Now, most cars have theft deterrent keys. They got immobilizer keys, or they got remote ones that also have RFID chips in them. So, there's not that easy to steal in the first place. But like I say, if somebody sees a club, they're going to say, ugh. The one next to it's going to be easier to steal. Always make it harder to steal. Like, let's say you have a house. Let's say you don't even have a burglar alarm system on your house, right? Buy a bunch of burglar alarm stickers and put them in the windows and the door. They'll figure you got one even though you don't have one, right? You just want to deter people. You can't stop a professional thief, but most of us aren't millionaires with diamonds and gold in the safe, so they're not going to come, the pros aren't going to come to our houses to steal our TVs, Next question. Adrian Luis says, Scotty, any updates on the 1.5 Honda turbo engines with oil dilution? I just bought a 2022 Accord new. All right. Well, the older ones had oil dilution. The newer ones really don't. And here's the reason why. They came out with a new type of oil, GF6, right? It's not a brand, it is a type of oil. All the different companies make it. That is made especially for those engines to stop chain wear, to stop oil dilution from both GDI systems and turbochargers. And all my customers that use that 0W10 or 0W20, whatever weight, GF6 oil with those engines don't have any oil dilution problems. Some of them had them, they had older ones. Some of them had them, and then they switched, and they actually had their oil analyzed after they get the oil changed at one of these oil analysis companies. Get a sample, you mail it away, and they find out that when they had the non-GF6 oil, they had oil dilution. Then they had almost none after they switched to the GF6 oil. So that's what you can do. Aaron Hope says, can bad motor mounts cause the transmission to shift time? Well, they certainly can because the engine and the transmission are bolted together. And if the motor's jiggling all over the place, that means the drive shafts are going to be moving around and it can shift weird because they're going to be binding and it's going to be bouncing around. And of course, on most modern cars, it's really hard to even say motor mounts, transmission mounts. A lot of them, they're the same thing. The motor and the transmission are bolted together, and a lot of them, some of them will go on the motor, some of them go on the transmission, but they all do the same thing. If they're broken and cracked, believe me, fix them. Put a jack under the car. Jack up the engine a little bit in the transmission. If you see it moves and the mounts are all separated, replace them. Next question. Scott Jonan says, Scotty, what's your preferred brand of tires? Well, there's all kinds of tires out. One, I would say, stay the heck away from Chinese-made tires. They're crap, right? That's just the way that it goes. I just bought some tires for my wife's car because you guys noticed it. Your wife's wear bands are down. I didn't notice and they are worn. So, I had to get new tires. Well, I got some Goodyear tires. They're made in the USA. They were a decent price, and they had them in stock at the discount auto parts store. So that's what I bought. Now, if I wanted a little fancier ride, I would have got Michelin's. I asked for the Michelin's, but the company didn't have them in stock, and they were bald, so I needed them, right? And they also had these Sumitomo tires out there because they're made in North Tonawanda, outside of Buffalo, where I grew up. And my father used to work in that factory. I think it was a Bridgestone factory then. Now the Japanese bought it at Sumitomo. But they do a good job making tires. But again, the guy didn't have them in stock, and I needed tires. So I put the Goodyear tires on. And they're good tires. There's lots of good tires out there. Michelin, you name it, Goodyear. But you don't want to get tires made in China. Now, strangely enough, they make pretty good tires in Thailand. They make a lot of stuff in Thailand. I bought Lexus parts from Thailand. They make some good stuff in Thailand. My Triumph motorcycle, the whole thing was made in Thailand. So the Thais do a pretty good job. But the Chinese and tires, no, I'd stay away from them. Next question. What if, says Scotty, do most Hondas have interference engines or not? Most of them do now, but most of them also have timing chains made out of metal you don't have to worry about it. For some odd reason, till today, Honda's still making a bunch of V6 engines that have rubber timing belts, and they are interference engines. The rubber belt breaks, pistons hit the valves, destroy your engine, right? Why they're still making them that way is beyond me. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. I guess they don't want to retool to put timing chains in. Everybody else has. Toyota did decades ago. All the other companies did, but they didn't. Now, interference engines are higher performing vehicles. Like almost most of the cars today are interference engines. A lot of the Toyotas are too, but they have timing chain, metal timing chains. You change the oil filter and they're made right, they're going to last a long time. Now, on the other hand, take like the Fiats. You don't want to buy a Fiat engine with a timing chain because they're made like crap and the timing chains break. The belts actually are better. You got to change them every 100,000 miles. But the chains in the Fiats are terrible because they keep breaking because the Italians don't make very good chains. Jeffrey 900 says, I want to move to Western New York. I hate New York City. All right, well, join it. They lost A whole bunch of their population, and a lot of them were millionaires. I just read a thing. They're losing billions in their tax revenue. But they're not moving to Western New York. They're moving to Florida, Tennessee, Texas. The taxes just starting. What? New York State, I believe, is 14.9% of your money goes to the state. There's the state tax and the New York City tax. So in New York City, you got to pay 14.9% of your income to the freaking state and the city. Pardon me. What do you get with it? Crime, roads with holes in it, people screaming at you all the time. Move to Tennessee like I did. You'll be happier. Land costs less. Taxes are less. There is no state income tax. There's certainly no city income tax. Get out of there while you still can. People are leaving California too. Office buildings are emptying out. They're all crapping in their pants. The infrastructure in New York City, last time I was there, it's falling apart, right? Hey, they're running out of people paying tax. It's only going to get worse as time goes on. Get out before it's too late. Next question. John Vaniseka says, what car do you hate the most, Scotty? Well, I don't hate them. Hate's a strong word. I dislike bad designs and stuff. I mean, like Jaguars, beautiful cars, but rolling piles of crap that fall apart in front of your very eyes, you know? And of course, the Ferraris, Lamborghinis, they're even worse. You know, I just laugh at them all myself because I don't buy them, you know. Now, I would hate them if I actually bought them. I'd say, oh man, I hate this car, all the money I wasted on it, right? But I don't buy them, I fix them. So it's somebody else's dime. They're fun to drive when I'm road testing and move. They're fast, right? I mean, Doc down the street here, he just bought himself a new M4 BMW, 160 something grand, twin turbo, 6-cylinder engine, beautiful convertible, beautiful wheels, all kinds of fancy self-driving, headlights that follow down the road at night. You know, fun to drive, but not fun to fix. When those dual turbos go out, and they do go out, there's 16, 20 grand you got to throw out. I don't own them, so I don't hate them. I would if I owned one and it broke, I'll tell you that. Next question. Rob Fromich says, 09 5.4 Ford, 2-star valve, phaser clatter sometimes after it's warm. All right, well, it means that it's wearing, and that's the problem with those. Now, you can get a kit that you can buy. They don't cost that much. You can pay a mechanic to put it in. What it will do is it will lock the cams in place so you won't have variable valve timing. The noise will go away. Fine, you know, you will have a little bit less power, but it'll still run. It's a big V8, right? So it's got plenty of power. If you want to fix it, you're going to have to take it all apart and build it. And it's, what, 09, I'm sure you got high mileage. What's the point of fixing a high mileage, putting cam stuff in it when probably the whole engine needs rebuilding? But you can get a cam lockout set, put it in. If you're not mechanical, pay a mechanic to do it, and you'll probably be really happy. Do it sooner than later, because eventually if it does break, it'll break internally and destroy everything. And once you lock them in place, you don't have to worry about the system anymore. It's disabled. Next question. Mr. E says, me E, do you feel vehicles were made during the pandemic years just thrown together? I don't feel that way. I know that way. I work on them. Oh man, I've had people buy them and within the first year things start falling off of them. They were hiring whoever they could get their freaking hands on to put them together. And hey, I mean, they took white-collar workers, put them on the assembly line. Of course they're going to screw up when they're building something. I'd say the worst of them all are the Fords. I see the most problems with the Fords that were made in the pandemic. They seem to have the most labor problems out of them all. They did make a lot less cars, all the manufacturers, but I did see, even I've seen Toyota quality during the pandemic go down too. I've seen Toyotas that had problems you would have never seen. I had a guy buy a brand new Lexus in Tennessee, and the first month the check engine light came on. He'd take it back to the dealer. You would have never seen that past. My wife's Lexus check engine light came on the first time when it was 21 years old, and it was just a stupid $15 sensor. But it went 21 years. His went a month and the light came on. So, you know, Yes, I agree. The pandemic cars, I would not buy one. You look at a car was made in the pandemic, look for a different one if you're buying a used car. Next question. What if says, why does Nissan make crappy CVT transmissions? Because they make crappy everything. Right? Well, they own a company called Jatco that makes them, and they make the worst CVT transmissions in the world. That's just a crappy company. Nissan has been on the verge of bankruptcy for decades. Ford was going to buy them, but then Ford had that Ford Explorer blowing up tires, flying over and killing people, and their stock went down the toilet, so they couldn't afford to buy Nissan. And then Peugeot got involved in it, and now it's Peugeot, Nissan, and Mitsubishi got kind of alliance, and that's all falling apart. None of them can agree on anything. Nissan just does crap. They made great cars when they were Datsun, and the early Nissans are decent cars, but once Peugeot got involved, when they bought it pretty much around the year 2000, they started to go downhill, and they're still sliding. Doug Barlow says, sales tax is very high in Tennessee. Yeah, it's somewhat high, but you don't have to buy certain stuff, right? Right? Food, they're not taxing meat and stuff. And, hey, and go to flea markets. Everybody takes cash there. They don't charge sales tax. A lot of underground economy in Tennessee, let me tell you. The hillbillies out in the hills, hey, they don't even use cash half the time. They're just trading stuff here and there. So there is a way around sales taxes. There's no arguing that, you know. Most places that don't have a state income tax have somewhat higher sales taxes. But then there's places like California, they have both. And New York State, they have both. So what the heck? If you can get rid of any tax, it's a good thing. Next question. FM says, what do you think about Hyundai GDI engines? What do you think about them? All right. I don't like Hyundai engines to begin with. You put gasoline to direct injection, can have over 1,000 psi pressure spraying in the engine. Guess what? You're going to have even more engine problems. They have had fuel injection problems with Hyundais and Kia since they were made. And now put in a fuel injection system instead of 45 psi is over 1,000. You're just asking for troubles, and you will have trouble in the long run. Now, they're not like Fiats. I mean, you can buy a Kia or Hyundai. It might be relatively trouble-free the first 80, 90,000 miles. But then as they age, they become endless money pits. Where the Toyotas and Hondas, they go 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 miles. You won't get that out of a Hyundai or a Kia. Now, if you can buy one cheap enough with low enough mileage, what the heck? But don't expect them to last forever because they won't. Believe me, I work on them all the time. You don't see the Korean cars with 300,000, 400,000 miles. You see them all the time with Hondas and Toyotas. Well, that's it for today. Realize every day of the week, I upload 2 videos on the Scotty Kilmer channel on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the notification bell and all that. And I'm here Thursdays at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time, because I'm on the East Coast now. And I'm also on YouTube live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern time, so I'll catch you then.